call the Board of Ed monthly meeting to order at 7:03. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's very exciting to have a packed room. I always like to start reading our mission statement. Our mission is to inspire in each student a joy and passion for learning and a commitment to excellence, personal integrity, and social responsibility. It always seems like the perfect segue into our Avon Achievers. So I would like to call forward Jess Giannini from Pine Grove School, if you would like to recognize Kate Carson for us. And Jeff will go join you.
So it's an honor to be here this evening and recognize Kate for her work at Pine Grove School. And I'm going to take us all the way back to convocation, actually, when we talked about the idea that it takes a village. And of course, to me, that doesn't just mean that a village being many people, but many people with different talents and abilities. And maybe more importantly, people who bring a passion for the work that they do. And I think Kate is somebody who exemplifies that work at Pine Grove School. Many of the students that she works with require a high level of need and very specialized programs. And perhaps to speak the most eloquently about the work that she does is she makes it look effortless. Kate and her team, many of whom are here tonight to recognize her, the work that they do with those students, it just is part of our community, it's part of our school, and it truly is seamless. So thank you for that work, Kate. And in aside, or in addition to the students who are on Kate's caseload, if you will, it's not uncommon for us to call upon Kate when either a student, a staff member, or even an administrator is in need of some behavioral support. And she always floats right in with lots of great advice, lots of good recommendations, all with the best interest of those students in mind, giving that back. So Kate, on behalf of the students, parents, staff, administration at Pine Grove School, thank you for all the work that you do. You're an important part of our village.
Thank you so much, Kate, for all that you do. You don't only impact these students, but you impact their families as well. So really, thank you. I'd like to call forward Mr. Rinkwitz, if you'd like to recognize Harriet Wanlick for us.
Harriet, obviously, in I think the 62 days of at the high school, Harriet has made it. No, this is a special opportunity for us. It's not a regular Avon Achiever evening, but it is a special recognition for Harriet. I think it comes really from the heart of a student who is currently at the University of Chicago, your alma mater, who had to nominate a teacher that inspired her and led her to be where she is today, and that teacher was Harriet. The one time I've been in Harriet's class so far this year, I felt like I was in the college course. I looked around and was senior.
College course, it was the AP course.
Well, there we go. University of Avon. Okay. But all seniors sitting there, just the level of discussion, the freedom that she gives them within the classroom, and that just in that short period of time that I was able to observe her, certainly is an inspiration to everyone. So we're very happy that you came to a higher calling than being a lawyer, and you decided to give up your career from a graduate also of Yale Law School, and decided to pursue a passion of teaching. For that, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet. When I had the privilege of reading how you got here tonight, it's one of those full circle moments you always think of, if I could just impact one person's life, and you got to actually have it come back to you. So that's really nice to be recognized in that way. So thank you for all that you do. I would like to ask if the board would indulge me for a moment because we have Janine LaRosse with us this evening as well, and I just wanted to recognize what we did this afternoon. I was going to say it later in the meeting, but with you sitting here, I'd like to give you some recognition as well. Jeff and I were privileged enough to join Dr. Cardinal Mola, along with, was it one of the co-presidents of AT&T or?
Connecticut president.
Yep,
Connecticut president of AT&T. We had Senator Whitcoast with us. Because of all the work that Janine has done with Girls Who Code, she applied for a grant, which was very competitive to even be considered, and they received $10,000. So it was one of those. Amazing check, and Janine got students to come as well, which is a testament to what you do to get them to show up. So everybody was very excited to celebrate that with you. So I'm glad you're here that I could say that in your presence. I would also like to ask the board if they wouldn't mind us amending the agenda tonight to move the consent calendar up next so that we have some celebratory cake in the hallway. So it would be nice if we could actually enjoy it with purpose. So can I have a motion to amend the agenda to move the consent calendar to our next course of action?
So moved.
Okay, Houston moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Laura seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and so motion to approve the consent calendar. Does anybody have any reason to remove something from the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Okay, Houston moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jackie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the reason we moved it, if you haven't had an opportunity to look at the agenda, is we wanted to be able to officially hire our new Director of Human Resources. So Roberto Medic, if you wouldn't mind standing for a moment so we can acknowledge you. We would love if you're open to coming forward and maybe saying something.
I can speak from right here.
Excellent.
I have a lot of voice that carries. First off, I'd like to thank the Avon Board of Education for approving my hire as Director of Human Resource. I'm looking forward very much to joining a progressive district and engaging in work with district leadership and school leaders to support over 500 employees within the district to support all students in the community. In addition, I'd like to thank Dr. Carmel and her staff. During the 2 rounds of interviews, I gained a unique perspective and insight to the work being done in Avon and the goals for moving forward. And I'm very excited to join the team. Unfortunately, I'm not joined by my family because it's bedtime at home. But I'd like to thank my wife, Justine, my sons, Landon and Cooper, and my daughter, Mia, who hopefully will be in bed by the time I get home. They are obviously my motivation, but also I'm truly blessed to be a husband and father, and I do have some colleagues here who came to support me this evening, and I'm gratefully appreciative of them being here. So again, thank you, and I look forward to joining them.
Well, I think it would be nice if board members, if you had anything that you'd like to say to Roberto at this moment, just to welcome him. I will start and say that we are absolutely thrilled to have filled this position. This is a dream of ours to have someone in human resources, so it's very exciting to bring that to our district, and we are really feeling that you're a good fit. So congratulations and thank you. Anybody else? Jeff?
I would like to second everything that the chair said. In addition, one of the things I know myself and many other board members are looking for twofold. One, someone with a strong background in education, understanding the unique issues involved in certification, the variety of educational laws. At the same time, someone with an understanding and experience of HR-related matters. And what came through in the interview process was your vast experience, various different types of positions, but in particular, the personnel matters that you had to address. And unfortunately, those types of matters do appear in this district, and it's great to have someone who understands both sides of that job. So I'm very excited to have you on board.
Welcome. We're thrilled you're here. It's going to be an exciting year getting you up and running. You have a lot of wonderful people to meet, and I think it's going to be exciting. We're thrilled. I second all the wonderful things that they said.
Yeah, I think Jeff spelled it out well. And the one thing that struck me about you, Roberto, when we met you was you seem like the type of person who in the past has really taken opportunities and seized them and run with them. So I hope we can expect the same thing here, and I'm sure you're going to do that for us.
Roberto, I'm glad that my question didn't scare you off, as I'm noted to do. I think you'll bring a steady hand, and hopefully we will be more boring than some of the aspects you had in some of your prior job. But if we are more interesting, I'm sure you're up for the challenge.
Well said. I like it boring.
Anyone else?
I would just say congratulations, thank you for joining the team, and I look forward to you and your new role taking us to the next level.
Just welcome aboard, and I hope you enjoy the position, and we're looking forward to having a level of transparency and consistency that we think you can achieve for us.
Right now, I'd also like to acknowledge that Mr. Bill Duffy is with us this evening, and he's our new hire for principal at Thompson Brook School. If you wouldn't mind standing so that we can acknowledge you. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to be the next principal at Thompson Brook School. I've heard tremendous things about the district leadership team. I'm very excited about joining them. I've already had many warm, welcoming emails from some of the staff and the team at Thompson Brook, which is a great feeling to get started. And certainly looking forward to meeting them and getting to know them as we work. I'm most excited about getting to know the students and their families at Thompson Brook. I've already started tonight, my first student here. Dress appropriately. I'm here to support his mom, which is great. So that's exciting. But I also anticipate a great working relationship with the board, and I want to thank you for choosing me, and I can't wait to get started. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think we'd be remiss if we didn't take a moment to say kind words to you as well. We are very grateful that you came to our district. I'm thrilled that Mike is behind you, and I know he'll be a great mentor for you in the district, but he left that building in such good shape that I think you're stepping into a nice package. So I think that we're very excited to be working with you. So thank you again, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I also want to welcome you, and how excited we are to have you in our district, but just to give you a strong compliment, when you were appointed, I got a text from a parent in your previous district how upset they were that you were leaving. So to me, that's very meaningful, and we're very lucky to have you in our district.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So it didn't occur to me until I sat down during that interview that you will be my son's principal next year. And for me, that really changed the topic of conversation and how I approach it. And I was very impressed. Your demeanor, your approach, your sense of humor, which I think is so vital in education, and your experience. And I'm very excited, not just what you're going to do for my son when he gets there next year, but what you're going to do for all Avon students. And I'm very excited. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Jeff said exactly what I was going to say, so we've agreed twice in 15 minutes.
I don't know if they put that in the minutes.
Welcome aboard. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Welcome. It's going to be all these great new beginnings, and we're all looking really forward.
I'd say congratulations as well, and welcome to the team too. Looking forward to great things.
My son is a graduate of Thompson Brook School, and so during those years he was there, we learned how great those people are in that school. The staff are really excellent, so you should be pleased with the people that you meet there.
I'm very excited. Thank you.
To the chair, if I may. First, obviously, again, welcome and congratulations to both Mr. Medic and Mr. Duffy. As you can see, I think we're all thoroughly excited to have both of you on board, and I appreciate the showing to support both of you too. Of course, some of our folks couldn't be here with us this evening, but you'll be here soon enough, and we can't wait for you to begin. I want to take one step back because I think this is important. I'm sorry, Harriet, because poor Harriet didn't necessarily want to be on the spot tonight. I had a lot of ideas for how she might be able to be recognized, and I got her to come here. But I wanted to go back, as Mr. Rankowitz mentioned, it was a student that nominated Harriet for this award from the University of Chicago, and I received a copy of the letter that went to Harriet. And in the letter, I just want to read a couple of pieces of it, because I think this speaks volumes, not only about who you are, Harriet, for sure to be recognized in this way, but who our faculty as a whole is in Avon, that a student would take this kind of time to nominate a teacher and to tell them that not only expressing gratitude, but giving her a voice on paper for hearing joys and frustrations and fears and leaving with the student with a broader perspective of the world. Thank you for seeing what held me back and transforming into the things that spur me forward. Thank you for understanding me in a way many teachers could not. It means more to me than you know. The next 4 years wouldn't be possible without your continued support and encouragement. I think that says everything that any of us could ever hope to say to a teacher. So congratulations again, Harriet, and thank you for the work that you and all of our faculty does. I appreciate you.
I love starting meetings like this. This is great. I think what we'd like to do is get all of the board, along with Mr. Duffy and Mr. Medic, and take a group photo, if that's okay, and then we will take a 5-minute recess to go out and get some cake in the hallway, and everybody that came here to celebrate, you're more than welcome to head out after that, unless you want to return and join us for the rest of our meeting, but we won't be offended by that.
Motion to recess.
So, motion to recess for 5 minutes. Yeah, okay, Houston moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Bogdan. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I think we're ready to resume the meeting at 7:32. So now we're on to approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the Board of Education regular meeting minutes from September 25th?
Motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Okay, both minutes. Anybody second?
Second.
Jason seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approved unanimously. Now we have communication from the public. Anybody that still remains like to come forward and say anything. Mr. Porter, please come forward. Tell us your name again.
Bruce Corbett is my name, resident on Huckleberry Hill Road. Very difficult to say what I'm going to say tonight when it's been such a happy meeting, especially with cake. But I'm gonna go for my concerns anyway. I'm a retired teacher and was president of a teachers association and did negotiations and arbitration. My perspective is essentially that Avon teachers are paid too much. I take that viewpoint in the fact that when you compare Avon teacher salaries to the towns that touch Avon, they are several $1,000s more for those towns that touch. And as it gets toward the final steps, it's there even more so. And Avon's teacher retirement plan is probably one of the best in the state. I have checked with some of the other district schools in ERG 1, and even in that comparison, Avon does very, very well, if not the highest, one of the highest. And considering the cost of living in the Gold Coast area, Avon teachers are very well compensated. And I'm not against teachers, and they do a wonderful job. But I think there has to be this somewhat level consideration. There has to be concern about the sustainability of these teacher salaries if they keep going at the same rate. And the same rate started in my history here in Avon in 2012. I found out about the teacher salary settlement in the newspaper, and I went to a town council meeting, made my case, and the town council in 2012 voted 3-1. One person on the town council abstained from voting. I kept looking around again, and then we had another settlement in 2015, and that settlement was a 2% settlement. I did not have a chance to go to the board and make my spiel before the vote, but I'm sort of learning after 2 strikes that I'll speak to the board before they vote. So I was told that there may be a vote tonight. So I'm here to make my concerns known. The thing about the 2015 teacher settlement is the town council has a final vote on that. They decided to let this thing go through without taking a vote. So the teacher settlement passed automatically. We have the situation where the teacher salaries, and I do not know what the percentages are, but when you do 2% per year or 2.25% per year on a high teacher salary, that's quite a bit of money. And other districts may be getting 2.25%, but Avon's 2.25% is more than a lot of the other districts that get 2.25%. So we have this creeping inflation or creeping progress of the salary schedule that seems to be in par with everybody else.
Madam Chair, point of order.
Excuse me?
Madam Chair, point of order, time exceeded.
Mr. Corbett, the time for your comment has gone over the normal 3 minutes. Are you feeling like we're almost
I
done
didn't
wrapping
realize
up?
it was 3 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I will conclude. I just want to say that I don't want to be a discordant note. I know a lot of work goes into negotiating and being a member of the Board of Education. And with that, I thank you for the opportunity to speak at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett.
Thank you.
All right, moving along, items of information and proposals, our student representative report. We have Addison Gannance here to report to us.
Thank you. I believe the last time we met, it was Spirit Week at Avon High School, and I'd like to report that the pep rally, I think, went well for the most part, and it kind of helped to bolster some school spirit at Avon High School. Last week, juniors and seniors took the SATs, which also went well. Currently, not much more to report on, but the Avon Club at the school is hosting a drive for Gifts of Love, currently different products. And student government is hosting a blood drive next Monday, the 22nd. So those are some different things that students are doing to help the community for the month, like overall. Thank you.
Thank you, Addison. Now our financial report, Ms. Michelle.
Good evening. The financial report for September shows a very similar trending as years prior. I always do a year-to-date look back for a similar time period, both for the Finance Committee and for the board as well. Here's some of the highlights. Unencumbered salaries are up approximately 1% from this time year-to-date last year, 2017. However, benefits are drastically further expended from last year, and that's due to both the OPEB and the pension initial contributions being made a month earlier this year. So you'll note that. And then all other operational accounts are trending in just about the exact same manner as the year prior.
Thank you, Heather. Now for committee and liaison reports, Jackie, would you like to talk about curriculum and professional practices?
We have a meeting possibly coming up at the end of October. I don't think I have anything else to report since the last meeting. We are still working on some of the highlights. We're communicating some of our support services for our families, how we're communicating our new policies and things of that nature. We've been discussing CPDC and classes and curriculum, but nothing until probably the next meeting at the end of October.
Thank you. Jay, Finance?
Yes, so at our last finance subcommittee meeting, besides the financial report, most of our time was spent discussing 3 items that are under new business for tonight. So we're going to go into some detail on the capital budget, the Avon High School multi-purpose field refurbishment, and the fees and tuition schedule. So we're going to discuss those in detail later. And our next meeting is Tuesday, November 13th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Jason, negotiations?
Yeah, the report is basically the same as it was at our last meeting, October 30th, which is in 2 weeks or so. There's a mediation with the custodians and maintainers, and then as far as the teachers go, we'll discuss that in executive session and potentially vote after that.
Thank you. And Laura, policy?
I'm not sure if this is going to... All right, so we had a presentation by Pat DeRossi, who came in to talk to us about trends and changes in student health policies and administration of medication. We voted to table one particular policy, and we're separating another one out to create a whole separate policy. There's been some legal counsel given because these are very complicated policies, and we're actually going to be revisiting some of them at our next meeting. We have not determined yet when that would be, but most likely on its regularly scheduled date in November, pending all the other budget meetings.
Thank you. Now, liaison reports, board rep to Curriculum Professional Development Council. I believe the first one of the year is October 25th. So that will be in this room from 8 to 3 p.m. Okay, so there's nothing to report on that just yet. Board rep to the Avon Board of Finance.
Okay, Board of Finance has not met since my last update. So the biggest issue with them remains wrapping up the revaluation, which is expected to be flat or even down possibly a small amount. And of course, there is the referendum coming up on December 12th for the turf field and the communication system. Those are their big issues right now.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for David? Okay. Moving on to board rep for Avon Town Council, Jason.
The town council also didn't have a regular meeting since our last meeting. They had an informational meeting about both the turf field and the communication system that I did not attend. I think the superintendent might have attended, and maybe you, Deb, and Jeff. So that was in the beginning of October. Their next scheduled meeting, I believe, is October 23rd, which I actually have a conflict for, so if anybody is looking for something to do on October 23rd, the meeting's at 7 o'clock at the town hall.
Does anybody want to raise their hand now or speak to Jason later? Okay, I guess we can arrange some.
Yeah, we can follow up after the meeting.
Okay.
Everybody knows how to get a hold of me.
Yes, thank you, Jason. Okay, board rep to Capital Region Education Council, Jackie.
There is a meeting tomorrow. I can forward the minutes once they are the next month's meeting. I talked to Bridget about how hard it is to get to these meetings in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day for 3.5 hours. So I am struggling with that. If anybody else has free time, a couple times a month or once a month to go down there, I'm open to it. I think they do a great job, and I think Bridget is getting a lot of the information around kind of how their scaffolding is for their fees and funding of their things. So I think it's okay. But we should think about it in the future, how it's going to look.
Okay. Any questions for Jackie about that? Any hands to volunteer?
I'll just say, if you don't mind, that even without Jackie being present, and I think that's a common issue for board members at those meetings, and we're, as superintendents, we're getting all the information, so when you come, it's great, but otherwise, we'll bring it back.
So now, board chair update. I feel that I've spoken enough this evening in celebrating our employees, so I'm ready to move forward to the superintendent's report, so
Thank you. I can be very brief in the essence of time because we have some other items to attend to tonight. Obviously, on the hiring report, we've already covered Mr. Duffy. I'd like to point out that our new director of school counseling, Todd Dyer, will be starting with us on November 5th here in high school, so we're excited about that after many rounds of interviewing. We'll speak more about it at the upcoming meeting, but Mr. Dyer is joining us from Chappaqua High School, where he is in the same role currently, and is an excellent candidate. I'm very excited to be able to see him starting to introduce him to you. Our enrollment report, we are, I believe, 5 students, memory serves me. Yes, 5 students, less overall in district from last month. Obviously, still moving around as the beginning of the school year. So people are closing out homes and so on. And our strategic plan update, so, you know, we wanted to leave this as a standing item. I mentioned when we did I did the mini presentation for you at the last board meeting that we were going to be meeting again on October 4th as an administrative team and working with Dr. Villanova from Connecticut Center for School Change. We did do that. Spent a good, I think, maybe 3 hours all told, ended up being together as an administrative team. Again, going back through some of what we have and how to proceed forward with the input from the board, the teachers, and the community. One of the things that I'll bring to you next, we're looking to do some pieces of conversation with faculty and staff in the buildings in a unified way on election day, because we have a professional development day, so we're able to devote some of the time having some of these conversations with building administrators and the faculty and staff. So happy about that. And I'm in the fray of trying to put it all together and bring back. And also the short of that is, as you know, Dr. Rusak and I have been splitting our time over at Thompson Brook in addition to our normal schedules, I would say. So in some ways, I'd say we're probably both a little bit behind some of the other things we'd like to do at this point. Leave it there. We've been moving full steam ahead with the strategic plan, and we're meeting again this Thursday, actually, as an administrative team, and doing the budget angle.
Any questions? Okay, so moving along to old business, there is none, so we'll move to the new business. The capital budget for fiscal year 2019-2020, Mrs. Schott. Oh, excellent, perfect.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
You'll have your packages before it starts. History, traditionally, we get on the average, I want to say about $500,000 every year. Last year we got $435,000. Year before we got $520,000. Year before it was around $600,000, but that also included milling for Roaring Brook's parking lot replacement, which is no longer part of our capital budgets because the town does that on their own, so that was sort of an anomaly that year. Having said that, tried to keep it down, but this year the total request is $1.598 million, and I'll go through this. Some of those are pretty critical systems on there. The first one, and this is an asterisk because we're hoping to use other funds for this that already exist, but it's for the water heater boiler here in the high school. It's 20 years old. The water tank is at its last legs. It's holding up, but we have one big 720-gallon tank. So if that tank fails, we don't have hot water in the building. As far as the mechanics of it, we have done a number of repairs on it, and repairs are increasing. So this being a shelter, we all know it's a critical item, and also it's critical, of course, just for daily operations of the food service. We have an existing account for, as you see it, for $276,932 for a replacement heating water boiler, which at the present time we do not need. The 2 water boilers we have are fairly new. They got a lot of life left in them. We feel we can take a risk on those, that this is a more critical use of the funds. I think that was put in back when the officials put on. There was some history, I guess, discussion about whether 2 boilers were sufficient. It was decided it was. They are just barely sufficient, but we had to make them work for 10 years. We feel that they will continue on for another 10, 15 years. So that's why this is accurate. We're recommending that request goes to go to the town that allows us to dip into the funds in that account in order to pay for a water heater boiler replacement for the high school. The next item on the list is repairs to the elevators at the middle school and one of the elevators at the high school. There was a code change in Connecticut beginning of this year, and there's a little diagram that comes up to explain this, but it required a double basin on the older elevators. Basically, to look at the previous 1975 elevators. Both of these both of them do not have a double basin. What we're talking about is the part that's below the floor, the part you don't ever see on an elevator. What they have to do is lift the whole elevator up, pull out everything that's underneath it, and replace everything with the double bottom on it. And what it does is it basically helps prevent contamination of any leakage of the hydraulic fluids and the other stuff that's in the bottom that makes the elevator work. Total project cost is $65,000 per elevator. This is a code requirement. The state's giving everybody a little bit of time to make it happen, but I don't think they're going to give us years to make it work. We had our contract elevator company, that's where we got the quote from, they're the ones who will do the work, and that's what they quoted the repairs of all the elevators to be.
Can I just ask you a question about that? Are you merely removing the hydraulic cylinder to put in an extra basin, or are you actually going to be replacing all the hydraulics?
We're replacing everything on the bottom, the entire basin underneath it.
I understand the basin, but are you replacing the hydraulics? I figure if you're replacing the hydraulics, you should probably do the control module in the elevator, and how much extra would that be?
That I don't know. What they're replacing is the removal of the complete hydraulic cylinder assembly, replacing the casing at the bottom, putting in a new end cap, replacing all the oil and everything. As far as the controls, that wasn't.
You're putting it back.
We're putting it back is what it appears to be, was replacing everything underneath there.
Right, no, I understand. You're just replacing the pan underneath. Got it. Okay, I understand. 130 seems high, but that's the price. That's the price.
At 65 per, what it is. It does, but it's going to be a couple of weeks worth of work next summer. Next up is the fire alarm notification system here at the high school. So remember, last year we got this approved. It came in over budget. So we're going in for a supplement. Basically, we need more equipment that was required by code. Over the years, as additions been put on, some things weren't added to it. There were some things missing from plans and such that we discovered as we finally did a 100% audit of everything. And we've also, as we began to turn it into a notification system, the add-ons became more than what we had initially estimated it to be. And this is like additional, for instance, panic buttons throughout the school to go in alert. Or like the fire alarm systems are, those buttons will be scattered throughout the school, so anybody who sees that something suspicious can call a lockdown. All of those added up to what we estimate to be about another $110,000. And so this is asking for the supplement to pay for that. As a reminder, the system here is outdated. They're no longer make parts for it. We get parts off the secondary market at an extreme cost if they're available. So far, we've been okay with that. And it's run its life cycle. Next up is the roof replacement at Warrenbrook. Partial of the roof, you can see that in the illustration I have coming up next. Part of it was placed in 2007, but we need to replace the part that was part of the addition back in 1994. Every time it rains, it leaks. We put a lot of repairs into it. It's basically a tar paper roof with some stone on it. We broke it down into 3 phases with our, the estimate from our normal contractor who maintains the roofs for us. And so what it comes down to is, if you orient yourself there, the front of the building is towards your left, and all the white is the newer roof. The brown is the old roof. So we just started on the one wing over there with 1, move over to 2, which is about where the art rooms are, and 3 is the gym. And spread over a 3-year period, just because of the costs. Security upgrades, did a lot of them this past summer. What we're looking for is continuing on with the work. We've completed everything that the police have identified to date. We've either completed it or mitigated it to their satisfaction. As we continue to look at it, the police also continue to look at it, but to date, there's nothing really new identified. So we want to go into adjusting the fire alarm systems in our schools, remaining schools, and turning them into a notification system. Middle school and the Thompson book, basically by adding lockdown buttons, replacing some of the speakers, increasing the speakers and strobes in the high density areas and noisy areas, the gyms, the cafeterias, that type of place. Thompson book is actually replacing the fire panel. Roaring Brook already has a system like that that was replaced not too many years ago. Pine Grove system is such that you can't really, they don't advise doing add-ons, so that'll appear in next year's capital as a complete replacement, just like we're trying to do with the high school this fiscal year. So we can do some modifications to the middle school and Thompson book to make them a little bit better for our code lockdowns and all that. Third item there, central office security upgrades. We just had the police do a security assessment of that. That's sort of like just a placeholder there, based on their report coming back to what we have to do with the central office. And any upgrades we have to do to that building. That's the one building we didn't really do much on this past summer. We added some cameras to replace the locks, but we never had a security assessment on. And the final one, we did put in the cameras. They're still ongoing. They're completed here. There's some interior cameras in the elementary school. But we know, as we look at it, we want to enhance the system. We know a few cameras we'd like to add. Once it's up and running, we anticipate having a few more places that we didn't anticipate seeing. One recommendation that Jim Conley would like to do is take the smokestack here at the high school and put cameras on it. On 4 sides, we have an aerial view of the high school, and the whole property here. So it's things like that. Again, it's a placeholder. As we continue to look at the system and get it operational, some other places we would like to do it as enhancements to what we already have. And so we're asking for $70,000 for that phase.
Miles, do you mind breaking that down, the cost for each of those?
Right.
We discussed that in our committee.
The middle school system is estimated to be 25. There's a budget figure cost. The Thompson book is about 30,000 because the panel will be replaced. That's the additional cost there. And then the remaining funds, the cameras are the installation, everything, they're about $3,000-4,000, not counting the wiring and all that. So 25, 35, 55, at least another 15,000 just to anything that central office requires, and we'll put the rest into things like additional cameras. Next up is the high school air handling. The HVAC system, we asked for this last year, did not get it. There's another system we have that they no longer make parts for. They no longer make the refrigerant for it either. So we both have to buy both on the secondary market. Refrigerant is about 4 times the cost, $150 normal, we pay $600 per year. And it's about 20 some units in a RT year. Also, they don't make the parts more. When we get a replacement, we have to get it modified like the compressor, modify, we had to get it modified a little bit so it will fit into the RTU units that we have. So again, we broke that down into 3 phases. The academic wing is the older rooftop units, so that's where we want to go first. And there's a breakdown, that's what we got from Terrain. It's about 2 years old, so we added probably about 10% to it. Just on this, you know, that's what they usually tell us it'll go up over a couple of years. I don't know how well you can see that, but that should be in your packet as well. So there's a breakdown of how old everything is. Anything in red is things that are approaching age or aged out. So you can see the high school's all red. There's a couple AHUs at Thompson Book that will be the next school we will do replacements on after we finish the high school. Pine Grove, Warrenbrook are all new systems. Avon, the middle school is fairly new. District athletic field rebuilds. Basically what we want to do on here, we've had a contractor consultant look at our fields. We tried maintaining them last year, and the fields are just very well worn. The maintenance on the field hockey field, for instance, once we start playing on it, it went back to its other state. So what we're looking at is basically stripping the existing vegetation completely off, mixing it with a soil sand mixture to help the water drainage and percolate through it, and then putting it all back on, replanting it, leveling it out, probably put a little bit of ground on it to help the drainage, and then put a reseed on it with the proper type of grass consistent throughout that will stand up to the athletic. We had this in 3 phases. Phase 1 is the multi-purpose field, the field hockey field, which we're going to address here shortly with the operating budget. I think that's next on the agenda. I have the football field on there as a contingency based on how the referendum turns out in December, because that work will have to be done if they don't replace it to turf field. And then the softball field at the middle school is our 3rd priority on that.
Can I just ask a quick question? So I wasn't going to bring this up. So you have, in the event that the referendum doesn't go through, the football field is scheduled for 2020. If the referendum doesn't go through, if the referendum doesn't go through, would that be something we should do next year, in 19?
It'll be done, yes. This is about the time of year to do the work. So we'll probably do it fall of 2019 to be ready for 2020.
Ready for 2020, all right. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to thank you for asking that, Mr. Fleischman. And this came up at the turf meeting, so I think it's relevant to point out again in this venue that the turf field project, if it's not done, and we need to move forward with the proposed work here, we are talking about spending approximately $500,000 on the fields, on the track and the field, the football field, which moving forward will be a multi-purpose field, and I think that's one of the things that's confusing people. We're referring to it right now as a football field, even though other sports play there, so not to be confused with the multi-purpose field, that's up here. The new track, by the scope of work, I believe, would give us an 8-lane, right? And it's
with the turf field.
With the turf field. The new track would give us an 8-lane track, which meets CIAC guidelines. And the price of that, minus bringing in the equipment and so on, by the specs that we were given for the turf project, is about $330,000. So the base rate of a brand new track that meets CIAC regulations and has the ends that for pole vaulting and I'm saying the wrong, the discus and so on, javelin and so forth. That all gets done as part of the turf project, and that $330,000 plus we get an 8-lane
Well,
track.
that's another like $100,000.
Okay. So for that piece, it's 100.
Field stuff.
The track alone, 8 lanes, 330 approximately. So 350,000 really does exactly what we have out there. Keeps it 6 lanes. So if you do the football field and the track the way it needs to be done, it's about $500,000 that will be spent fixing the old versus putting in the new.
And we will get exactly the same footprint that we have now. She said, 6, not 8 lanes. The field events will be exactly where they are now. They won't be moved. They'll still shot put onto the football field, and that type of thing. This is basically just replacing what's inside the track. Is what we estimate $115,000.
I have a question about the track. Is there a reason we're looking at 6 lanes versus 8? Is it just if you leave things the way they are now, 8 lanes just won't fit?
Correct. On the turf project, they cut into we call the eyelash. They cut into the parking spaces there to make it fit.
And so, to be clear about what that means, when I'm talking about CAAC guidelines, our students participating in track, we can't hold meets here for titles and so forth because it's not CIAC approved. They can practice out there, they can run some of their meets, but the invitationals and the larger scale meets from a statewide perspective can't be held at Avon High. They can be held on the 8-lane track, but they cannot on the 6-lane track.
Sorry, were you?
No, I'm scratching my head.
I mean, I think it's so confusing for the public, not to mention board members, who's responsible for what when we're having all these discussions. I had multiple discussions with the public, and, the town is, my understanding is the turf is a town project, right? But the upkeep is a school project.
I think, and we talked about this at the turf meeting, that one of the things that is the simplest delineation is it's a public building project, right? Anything of this magnitude and scope and cost is a public building matter, which means that's why the committee has to be put together and so on, and it has to be managed by the town. It's still our property to maintain. So that doesn't mean we can't do it in conjunction, but it is school property.
I'm just putting it out there. It's confusing, and I'm just making a public comment. I think it's confusing.
No, I don't disagree. And when people have come and said something to me, I've tried to explain it in the same way as building a new school. The school district wouldn't completely build a new school on its own. It'd be a public building committee because of the scope of the work and the cost. And this track and field project is the same.
The other question I had was, Miles, in the very beginning of your presentation, you talked about, was it the water heater that we're hoping to get funds from the town? So what's the timing on that? How do we know when and if? Is that a given that they're going to approve that, or?
No, we haven't asked for it yet.
It's part of the motion coming up, if that's what the board decides.
Didn't quite hear you, Don.
It's part of the motion, if that's what the board decides regarding the CIP would be for the board to consider making an additional request to the town to allocate those existing funds in that existing town CIP account to this project, and not as a part of the regular CIP request budget.
So to be clear, we've met with Brandon Robertson, Bruce, Miles, Heather, myself, sorry I keep doing that, keep talking about finance, to discuss the idea. That's why, and then we met with the finance committee to discuss the idea. That's why we're bringing it forward tonight, because it's seen as an apples to apples use of the money, because the current line that it's in, correct me if I'm wrong, is related to HVAC. So this isn't exactly, it's not HVAC, but it's water boiler, it's furnace. It's at least in the same genre.
So Miles, I'm just going to say again, thank you for preparing this. I've already seen this once before in the finance meeting. As a whole, I have a number of concerns. One, when we have deferred maintenance, it can lead to dire consequences. Have we had any damage over at Roaringbrook with respect to the roof leak? And what is the potential for that? Should we end up with mold in those buildings?
We have replaced molded drywall in the gym area. We don't have it, has not come up in the other leakage areas, but we do get leaks. This past year we did, but I think it's because we've now patched on patch, and it's holding up a little bit. We have had to replace drywall because of mold.
So that is my concern, that we end up cutting off our noses to spite our faces because we're trying so hard to keep this number down. And I hope that the argument can be made that this might be something that perhaps maybe shouldn't be done in phases and should be done all at once. And I'm not saying that's the case, but if we're going to end up paying more over time for other issues that come up as a result of the leaking, I think that should be taken under consideration. Also, I expressed this as well during that meeting, that we have aging infrastructure, we have outdated instructional spaces, and I would hope that we could be taking, with respect to the 10-year forecast, a more strategic look at all of our buildings and what we're going to be needing in terms of resources moving forward, and how we can apply for perhaps state funding or other ways to help us so that we can achieve what other communities like Simsbury and Farmington are doing with respect to capital projects. It's a tough thing to put together this list, I know, and prioritize, but those are some concerns that I have.
Miles, I know you had one more piece to talk about.
And then the final item is the HVAC automation system. That's the technology that controls the heating and the air conditioning. The HVAC tech can control it all from the computer, raise the temperature, lower the temperature, turn it on and off. It's all computer driven. The technology that's doing it now is about 25 years old. As we replace the HVAC system, we're putting in the new controls. So as you see, Pine Grove and Warrenbrook have the new control system in, the updated software, the updated hardware. The high school, they'll put it in as they replace the HVAC system here. So the other issue we have with it is that once we go away from Windows 10, the operating systems will no longer be compatible with the software that's operating our older systems. We have broken down, this is another two-phase thing for Thompson Brook and the middle school, about $23,000 each. We are harvesting the equipment from the older as we replace it, so we do have some backups. We have, basically, the biggest one is called a building control unit that buys some rain for the whole building. We have some backups for those. So if one fails, we can put it in there. Other than that, it's the little controls in each one of the vents, their air units and the like. So this is $23,000 to replace the whole building. And we have two buildings that aren't going to be covered anytime soon by a HVAC replacement. So this is phase one, and phase two the following year will finish this up. And that concludes presentations. Any further questions?
Thank you, Miles. Any further questions regarding any of the items?
No question, what are you looking for?
I do have a motion before me, but when I read the extension of it, do we have to have a further discussion for the rest of that piece?
I think we need to have a discussion about the movement of the capital budget across the town, yes. I think we need to have a conversation about making a request of the town to utilize the remaining money in the existing account that was delegated for the HVAC system at the high school, to use it to replace the boiler at the high school. Right. And again, that's the $185,000.
The motion you're looking for is to say, go ahead and look into this, but we're not approving.
Go ahead,
So I actually wrote the motion all-inclusive because through our discussions with the town manager, it was really important that we brought this through the capital process, but it was to be listed as priority number one because, as Miles had mentioned, essentially, losing this piece of equipment would enable the high school in a really tough place. We couldn't run school, and it is the emergency shelter for the town, so that would be a major catastrophe.
I understand. I'm just trying to understand what motion you would like. I'd be happy to make it if you tell me what motion you'd like.
We have
I will make the motion.
I just want to make sure we understood that.
Sorry, that's right.
I'll make the motion to approve and move to the town manager the fiscal year 2019-2020 capital budget as presented. Additionally, the Board of Education requests the funding for the Avon High School water heater boiler replacement be from the existing Town of Avon account allocated for the Avon High School HVAC boiler.
Second.
Seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. All right, so now move on. Further discussion on the high school multipurpose field refurbishment project.
During Miles' presentation, he had made mention that as part of the recommendations we were bringing forward to the board was to really review our fields and our field conditions. He did make a statement that we had attempted to quote rehab what we call the multi-purpose field, which is essentially the field that came across here at the high school. We had shut it down for use this spring. We had brought in a consultant to help us with the maintenance required at that field. It rested. It did get treatment and whatnot over the summer. Miles did mention that frankly, it returned to its condition in the fall once play started. So that being said, it is phase one on what you saw just now, and because of also what Miles had said, the growth period and the time it takes to refurbish a field, we were really hoping that the Board of Education would consider approving this project immediately using two funding sources. One, I think I mentioned on page 43, one being from the use of facilities account. Oh, sorry. It would be 32. One being from the use of facilities account. We're asking for an allocation of $25,000 estimated, and the remaining $45,000 for the total project cost, we're estimating at $70,000 from the general fund, and we had gained some savings, as everybody had noted, from one particular salary account, from not only the changeover of the position of superintendent salaries, but the unfilled director of human resources. So that would be our recommendation for consideration this evening.
Any questions about that?
So moved.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Just clarification, in order to do this, would we have to shut the field down again? When was the plan to refurbish the field?
The field would not be, well, the field would more than likely not be usable next spring. The plan would be to do the work in November, seed it at the end of November, the seed go dormant, and have it grow, and they'll also put another layer of seed down as soon as the weather permits in the spring, and allow both sets of seeds to germinate throughout the spring. So we would have to shut it down again for spring sports.
To be clear, we need the weather to cooperate right now.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So there's no guarantee of when we could open it up in the spring because of that.
So that'd be 2 springs in a row, we won't be able to use the field. So I just want to be clear on my timeline too, since there are a lot of pieces moving. Hypothetically speaking, the referendum goes through, the turf field won't start construction until that summer, because we're limited on where the sports that could use that field could be, right? And so I'm concerned about also shutting down that whole area around the track and so forth.
The multi-purpose field should be operational before they start working on the turf field, weather permitting. The option of waiting till after spring sports are over puts us in a really tight, it has to be a perfect summer.
Right.
I discussed that option with them the other day. It's doable. There's some additional costs because of treatments, but it also has to be a perfect summer, and even then, it may not be available probably till the end of September.
Where will the sports that use the multi-purpose field use? What did they use last spring? I guess that's really my question.
I'm not sure where to put them.
The athletic director has been a part of these discussions, and he does understand that they would need to be relocated again, and he did state that that would not be a problem.
And we can relocate them with no additional cost.
Right.
Okay.
Or in town
Thank you.
was our understanding for the spring sports.
Thank you.
No additional cost. The field we're talking about right now.
Right.
Not the
Right
turf
now.
project.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
I have one question. I don't know if it's directly related, but I feel like it is. We undertook a similar project on the baseball field at the high school earlier this year, about the same cost. And my only real question is, because I don't know the answer, how did that project turn out? Is the field what we expected, playable, much better shape now?
Much better shape. They actually did some improvements on it that we weren't expecting. They realigned it a little bit, but it is a very nice field right now.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order, any motion, does it have a second or does it fail?
Well, we haven't read it. Let's read it into the record. Do you mind, Jay?
Anything Heather explained, you want me to read the motion that we opened that Houston said? Well, that's the motion to approve the Avon High School multi-purpose field refurbishment project with an estimated total cost of $70,000, including funding recommendations as follows. $25,000 from the facilities use fund and $45,000 from the general fund.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Laura seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Miles and Heather, for your explanation and your work on that. Okay, now the fiscal year 2019-2020 fees and tuition schedule. Ms. Schott again.
Apologies for taking so much of your time tonight. I'll try and be brisk. I hope you had a chance to review the schedules that we put forth. They are identical to the schedules we first saw in the spring regarding fees and tuition for your consideration. We were hoping to move this up into the October meetings. It would assist greatly in the budgeting process. If you had a chance to review, you would note that the administration is not recommending any changes to the existing fee schedule outside of preschool tuition, which we did recommend, and that could be noted on page 46. I'll get it correct this time. If you want to have a discussion, we can have a private discussion, but please.
Any questions from board members?
About the fees?
Yes.
I appreciate this chart. I think it's helpful to kind of see where we sit with other districts. I wish our parking wasn't so high. I'm sure we all wish that.
I just want to make another comment was something we stated at the committee meeting was we prefer not to have any pay to participate fees, but given the budget situation we're in, I don't think we have a choice this year. We'll revisit it on an annual basis.
I think also I had requested last year too, and maybe as we get into budget season this year, it would be helpful if we understood when it comes to the athletics, all of the, the pay to play, the booster funding, the fundraising, and what's the coming out of our budget. That's been kind of a fluid kind of a concept for a long time. I think it would be helpful for us to see that.
So if possible, I'll ask Ms. Michaud. We spoke about this at the Finance Committee meeting. To some degree, we didn't get into the booster funding, but if you could just give the total dollar amount of athletics versus the offset and whatever else you think is relevant. We had a conversation.
Yes. This year, 18-19, the total athletics for the entire district, high school and middle school, is just over $1 million. So the pay to participate revenue, if you will, offsets about 17 to 18% of that per annum. So at this point, we wanted to make it very clear to the public, because there's been confusion about what exactly that offsets from the public perspective during the budget process. Essentially, what it offsets is transportation for athletics, which is really high here. We know that we bus our students off campus all over the place. It also, we are looking at, or the parking specifically, you had mentioned. Wonderful. It's going to offset this year will be our proposed the graduation expense for the high school, which again is relatively high, but of course our students, we grant them caps, gowns, and everything else here. So that's really from the public perspective. I can do further comments.
No, I think as we get into budgets, that's very helpful. I think because it's a very common question by the public is what are these fees so high for? And I just think as we get into budget season, it will be helpful for me to understand as a board member and even as a parent. You pay your pay-to-play fee. Your kid, you pay some sports. You also pay lots and lots of extra to buy your child all of their equipment. And then there's lots of fundraising that is required of you. And I have no idea why. I don't know what we're paying. Where is all this? What goes where? I think it would be helpful. That's all. But this is great. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? We do have a motion. Do you want to do it again, Jay? Or do you want me to do it? Okay. I feel like when it's finance, it just makes sense. Okay. Motion to approve the fiscal year 2019-2020 fee and tuition schedule.
So moved.
So moved by Jason. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jackie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so now for policy 5141, student health services first read. Did anybody have any comments?
Yes, I have a couple of comments. Page 49, subsection 3, subsection 6, the word acknowledged is used. That's actually an error. It should be under oath. Page 48, subsection B, page 49, subsection 4, page 50, subsection C. Those should be rationalized, so they all should be the same in terms of what you were referring to as to a legally qualified practitioner of medicine, an APRN, registered nurse, physician assistant, or school medical advisor, and they're not in fact consistent in all three places, so that should be fixed.
So I'm clear. Legally qualified practitioner of medicine, and then the explanation of what that is, advanced practice, and so forth.
That's not in fact actually what a legally qualified practitioner of medicine is. Those are listing of categories, and they're in fact inconsistent, because the next one says a physician, which I would call a legally qualified practitioner of medicine. The other ones are not really practitioners of medicine. I don't care what the answer is. I'm just saying it should be consistent. Whoever wrote it wasn't paying attention. They weren't paying attention about acknowledgement. It should be sworn to. So those are just easy things off the top.
I missed the acknowledgement piece, Houston, I'm sorry. Can you tell me what page that was again?
Which one?
The acknowledgement. I missed the page.
Oh, page 49, subsection 3, subsection 6.
Okay, thank you.
It should be sworn to instead of the phrase acknowledge. Acknowledge means it's done free act and deed. Sworn to means it's true.
Any other comments? It is a first read, so
I'll just say, move us along, the primary purpose of the policy committee in this conversation of bringing the policy forward is due to the state statute that changed that requires that the language around the oral health assessments be included, which you can see if you look on page 52. So that was the primary reason that we took a look at this policy. And also, as Ms. Shute mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, or actually, I think it started, Ms. Young, I think it was you, there was another policy related that was separated out that we're not discussing here tonight, but we have still been discussing in policy, which is related to the medication administration at school. Two policies are clearly tied together, but we have separated the two out because of the extensive guidelines and regulations that have come regarding medication administration. So that is separated out from this student health policy that you're seeing tonight, and we'll address that separately.
Are we looking for action on this, or we're going to let it breathe? Okay. Board members are satisfied with comments? Okay, so the next part of our meeting is communication from Avon Board of Education members. Anyone have comments?
I will make a comment. I've been looking forward to hearing from the administration regarding their plans for our whimsical flowers that we were going to be watering, and I don't see it on the agenda, and hope that maybe next time we'll have something on the agenda. Things to do to improve and to not necessarily only for, but primarily for gifted students. So that was something that I had asked about. You said you were putting on your thinking hat, and so I'm merely following up saying I'm looking forward to receiving your report when it comes due.
Any other board comment? Okay, we have our second section for communication from the public. If anyone still remaining has anything further. Okay. So now I would like to move.
We're going to executive session.
Correct, but we'll take a brief recess so that the camera can be broken down, but we're going to go into executive session to discuss and have possible action in public session on Avon Educators Association contract. We'd like to invite Ms. Mashad in along with our superintendent. So motion to go into recess. Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Not
Have a
recess,
second.
executive session.
But we're not in executive session yet.
I understand, but it takes a moment to implement, but that's the motion.
Do I have a second?
Let's take a moment. Actually, I'll second. Second.
I'll second now if that'll move things along.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so now we will take a brief recess